Tonight, it is my honor to present the Father Edward F. Boyle Award to David Weil, Dean of the Heiler School, Brandeis University, and former administrator of the Department of Labor's Wage and Hour Division. Father Boyle, for whom this award was named, was beloved for the care, selflessness, and passion he brought to his work fighting for justice. David Weil exemplifies these ethics in his teaching, his research, his writing. Can you hear?
Not well. Go ahead, you can hear.
Okay, is that better? I'll start again. Father Boyle was beloved for the care, selflessness, passion he brought to his work fighting for justice. David Weil exemplifies these ethics in his teaching, writing, research, administration, and everything he does. It is clear that he is a worthy recipient of this award. We are honored to have him accept the CGA this year. Professor Tom Koken of MIT Sloan School, who's with us tonight. Where are you, Tom? Said of David, David Weil has served our community, indeed our nation, with distinction for many years, and most recently heading the U.S. Department of Labor's Wage and Hour Division. Long before that, David had been a valuable colleague teaching in the Harvard Trade Union program for 27 years, chairing the Agriculture Labor Management Committee, initially set up by John Dunlop as far back as 1991, helping me with a very controversial study of the safety issues affecting contract work in the petrochemical industry. Then at the Department of Labor, David got more done at the Wage and Hour Division than any predecessor in recent memory. When David left the Obama administration in January, the very bright folks at the Heiler School in Brandeis snapped him up to be dean of the school, where he is carving fresh paths. The Labor Guild is very proud to honor David Weil with the 2017 Boyle Award for excellence in labor management relations, exemplifying integrity, compassion, a bone-deep commitment to social justice, and to wise and effective public policy that benefits all our people. David? Right side up. Thank you. I'll put this.
Thank you, Allison, for that incredibly kind and generous introduction, and my deep gratitude to the Labor Guild for conferring this honor on me. Before I came up here, someone asked me, "Are you going to talk about the fissured workplace again?" And I'm not, and I don't have lecture slides. A night like this, to me, is one to thank people who bestow an honor like this. And I am deeply honored for multiple reasons to receive the Boyle Award. First, I'm honored because of the namesake, the late Father Edward Boyle. I was fortunate when I was completing my PhD work to have first met Father Boyle, who used to give the invocation at the Harvard Trade Union program's graduation. And all of you who knew Father Boyle would remember how memorable his invocations could be. He would manage to invoke social justice, fellowship, the honor of workers, the principles of unionism and civil rights, and the fellowship of men and women, all within 2 minutes. And particularly memorable for me as a Jewish person, he would do it in a way that really would invoke our common faith and our common principles in a deeply moving way. Father Boyle, or as everyone called him, Father Ed, also involved me in the Labor Guild and always took great interest in trying to find out what I was working on and thinking about how it might help the work of the Guild and working people in Boston. The second reason I'm deeply honored to be here is to add my name to the list of distinguished people who have received the Boyle Award in the past, which includes great figures from the past like John Dunlop, Jim Healy, Charlie Myers, and then more recently Arnold Zack, Tom Cohen, Elaine Bernard, Bob McKersey, Rosemary Pye, and last year's awardee and a colleague of mine at the Department of Labor, Mike Felsen. The third reason I'm deeply honored to be here is the presence of so many friends and colleagues who I have had the good fortune to work with since Miriam and I moved here in 1983. I grew up in Colorado, in a small town in northeastern Colorado. And getting to know Boston took some time, and getting to know the labor scene in Boston took some time. I think after 34 years, I can call myself part of Red Sox Nation, but it took a while. And much of what I learned about working with working people in Boston came from the opportunity to work with unions like Local 103 and NECA that Lou Antonellis generously described in his remarks, and getting to know people like Mike Monahan, Glenn Kingsbury, Rich Gambino, so many of our alumni who have come through the Harvard Trade Union program from Local 103, who taught me a lot about the building trades. The opportunity to work with the Mass Building Trades Council over the year, going back to people like Joe Dart, Leo Purcell, Mark Ehrlich, folks who really helped me understand the importance of the building trades and the challenges facing working people in construction. The opportunity to work with a visionary leader like Chris Rondo, really from the time I was a graduate student, and HUCTW and later SHARE, and the wonderful people who have organized a whole group of workers who for years the labor movement thought were impossible to organize, and learning from their inspiring example. And learning from so many other people in the Massachusetts labor community, the Massachusetts AFL-CIO, folks like Steve Tolman and Kathy Cassavetes, who really have been inspiring to me. And then I got to also grow up in this incredible academic community that is Boston, and learn from people like Tom Cohen and Bob McKersey and Richard Freeman and Joel Kutcher-Gershenfeld, and Arnold Zack, and of course my late mentors, John Dunlop and James Medoff. And then finally, if that wasn't enough, I was honored to learn about labor and from the community that surrounds the Harvard Trade Union program, under the leadership of my dear friend Elaine Bernard, Jack Trumpor, Lorette Baptiste, and now a colleague of mine who I'm fortunate to have here as a colleague with the Harvard Trade Union program, Sharon Block, who I was also just deeply grateful for having a colleague at the Department of Labor. All of these people have taught me the importance of thinking hard about how do you advance the interests of working people in the complex world we live in. The final group I am deeply honored to acknowledge here, and it's really my foundation, and that is my family, beginning with my wife, Miriam, who is my rock and partner in all I do. I'm also so glad to have my two daughters, Rachel and Alana, who are also proud now lifelong members of Red Sox Nations, and whose own dedication to social justice inspires me every day. And I'm also delighted to have my son-in-law to be, Brian Howell, here to join and be part of our family. There are two people I want to talk about who are not here physically, but they're here in spirit, and those are my parents, Jerry and Nancy Weil, who still live in my hometown of Greeley, Colorado. And they have always been my inspiration and North Stars. because I learned, like so many of you, about social justice, civil rights, unions, and politics at the dinner table. And they both came from backgrounds that really speak to me about the challenges we continue to face as a nation. My mother's parents were both refugees or immigrants from Russia at the turn of the last century and went into the garment industry and built their family as immigrants in this country. My father fled Nazi Germany in 1939, and his family got out really by the skin of their teeth. And we're fortunate to be welcomed into this country and to find a place in this country. And in the sense that the doors were closing on Europe for Jewish families at that moment, I really owe my existence to a country that would welcome refugees. My parents' stories really are a testament to the promise of this country, and it represents the best of what America is about, a nation that in its greatest moments and aspirations provides a home for refugees, provides a place for immigrants. And in its greatest moments and aspirations, it's a nation that has sought to right the wrongs it has inflicted on African Americans and Native Americans. That's what inspires me, along with the work done by so many people in this world, because it's been a nation that rewards both innovation and growth, but also historically sharing that growth, not only with the entrepreneurs and the people who found businesses, but by the men and women who make those businesses happen by the toil of their labor. I really saw the challenges that are facing people like my grandparents and my father firsthand when I had the honor to serve as President Obama's Wage and Hour Administrator. I participated in investigations of the garment industry in Southern California, and I saw conditions still too reminiscent of the kinds of conditions my grandparents had to toil in. I had discussions with immigrants who were frightened of coming forward and using the rights that our laws confer upon them, a fear that is compounded all the more so in the current environment we face. And in my work at Wage and Hour, I had the opportunity to meet young people who had accumulated huge debt to go to college and found themselves still with precarious employment, an absence of benefits, and not the promise that historically we could provide this in this country through education. The aspirations that mark this evening and characterize the work that so many of you do in labor, management, government, academia, and as neutrals is sadly under fire now because of the political situation we face and the longer-term structure of our economy that has changed that still waits to be addressed. Receiving this award honoring Father Boyle and his legacy reminds me of the importance of never giving up those aspirations and dedicating our heart, our minds, our soul to the task of, as Reverend Martin Luther King famously said, and as President Obama often invoked, bending the long arc of history towards justice. Thank you very much.